The night they came, the sea was on fire. Longships cut through the black waves like blades of obsidian, their sails painted with the blood-red serpent of Odin. Inside the great hall of Hrafnhild, torches trembled in the wind. They had heard rumors of the Northmen, but never believed the gods would abandon them so soon. It began with the horns, 3 short blasts that echoed across the fjord, carried on the fog like a warning from the underworld. The men who stood guard outside the hall never had time to scream. By the time the doors splintered, the fire had already caught the straw. Hrafnhild's banner, gold on white linen, fell into the mud as the first Vikings broke through. They came like wolves through snow, shouting, laughing, killing without hesitation. Their axes didn't just split shields, they split generations, tearing the lineage of noble blood apart in seconds. Inside, women huddled beneath the altar. Some prayed, others hid daggers under their skirts. The air grew thick with the smell of smoke and fear. Lady Astrid, daughter of the Earl of Hrafnhild, stood tall among them. Her hands shook, but her eyes burned with something the invaders did not expect: defiance. "If they come," she whispered, "they will take corpses, not brides." The words passed like wildfire through the room. Outside, the hall roared, beams cracking, thatch collapsing. The Northmen dragged noblemen from the steps, cutting them down one by one. The warlord Eric Bloodbrand led them, his face painted black with ash, his eyes glinting like the sea before a storm. When he entered, silence followed him. Even the flames seemed to bow. He looked upon the women, the last breath of a dying house, and smiled faintly. "Odin takes what he wills," he said. Astrid spat at his feet. The hall burned brighter. That night, the noble hall of Hrafnhild fell into ash and legend. But what the Vikings found inside, what those women chose to do before capture, would stain their memories forever. They were not born for surrender. Even as the hall collapsed behind them, the women of Hrafnhild walked into the night as if led by fate itself. The Vikings thought they had captured gold and glory, but what they held in chains were spirits sharper than any blade. By dawn, the longships were heavy with spoils and silence. Smoke curled over the ruins of the great hall. Inside, the charred remains of the Earl and his men still smoldered, sending black ghosts into the pale sky. The captives, 7 noble women, were forced to march barefoot through the frost. Their silk gowns were torn, their hair tangled with ash. Yet they did not cry. Not one of them gave the Northmen the satisfaction of seeing fear. Lady Astrid led them, her wrists bound in iron. When one of the raiders mocked her, she turned her face toward him and said softly, "You can chain the flesh, not the name." That night, inside the camp, the women sat close to the fire while the Vikings drank mead and boasted of the gods who granted them victory. The flames danced in Astrid's eyes, not with despair, but decision. She whispered to the others, "They will not have us as trophies." The women nodded, wordless. In that moment, something sacred broke inside them. Not hope, but the illusion of survival. They tore the hems of their gowns, twisted them into cords, and from their hidden pouches took shards of broken glass and bone. Each made a mark upon her own face, deep, bloody, deliberate. Screams echoed across the camp. The Vikings rushed toward the sound, thinking an attack was underway. Instead, they found their captives standing together, faces carved, eyes blazing like the northern sky. One of the warriors dropped his cup, muttering, "They have cursed themselves." Astrid stepped forward, blood running down her chin. "No," she said. "We have freed ourselves." The night wind howled. Even the sea fell silent. When Eric Bloodbrand saw what they had done, his fury became legend. He swore that before dawn every one of them would pay for defying the gods of war. But none of the women wept, not even when the torches were lit again. The gods were watching that night, or perhaps they turned away. The campfire burned low, the air thick with the stench of smoke and vengeance, and in the heart of it all, 7 scarred women stood before their captors, unbroken, unafraid, unforgettable. Eirik Bloodbrand's rage could not be measured in words. His pride, carved from years of conquest, had been humiliated before his men. These women, these prizes of war, had turned his victory into mockery. He ordered the men to drag them to the old chapter house by the cliff, a wooden structure once used by monks before the raids began. Its walls still smelled of incense and rot, a place meant for prayer now destined for punishment. As the torches were lit, Lady Astrid lifted her face to the flames. "You think fire will cleanse your shame," she said. Eirik struck her across the face with his gauntlet, leaving a streak of blood. "Fire cleanses everything," he spat. The women were thrown inside. The door was barred. Outside, the Northmen began to chant, a hymn to Odin, to glory, to the old gods of war. The sound rolled like thunder over the sea. But as the flames climbed higher, some of the men looked away. One of them, a young warrior named Haldor, whispered to his companion. They faced the fire without crying. "Are we the heroes or the monsters?" No answer came. Inside the burning house, Astrid and the others held hands. Smoke filled their lungs. Sparks danced like stars around them. They did not scream. They sang, a funeral song of their homeland, soft and trembling, rising above the roar of flame. Outside, the chanting faltered. Even Eirik turned his face. The roof collapsed and the chapter house became a tomb of ash and defiance. The fire that consumed their bodies would ignite something far greater, a curse whispered by the sea for generations. By dawn, the ashes had cooled, but the wind carried their voices still. The next time Eirik Bloodbrand raised his sails, storms rose without warning. Men said it was the women of Hrafnild, calling from beneath the waves, waiting for vengeance to finish what the fire began. The fire had died, but the sea had learned to burn. Every wave that touched the shore of Hrafnhild carried whispers, like the breath of women who would not rest. To the Northmen, the ocean had always been a path to glory. Now it became a grave. Weeks passed. The longships of Eirik Bloodbrand cut across the northern waters, heavy with gold and silence. Not one man sang. Not one dared mention the women of Hrafnhild. But when night fell, strange things began. Sails shuddered in windless air. Torches dimmed for no reason, and the sea itself, black as iron, began to whisper in voices that were not made for mortal ears. At first they thought it was the wind. Then came the singing. It began faintly, a woman's voice, soft, distant, echoing across the water. It was the same song the captives had sung as they burned. Every man aboard froze. Even Eirik's hand trembled on his sword. "The dead don't sing," one of them murmured. That night the storm rose. Waves as tall as towers crashed against the ships. Lightning tore the sky open, revealing faces in the clouds, and pale, hollow-eyed, watching. For every bolt of thunder, another man vanished overboard, and when the sea swallowed them, it did not give them back. By dawn, 3 ships were gone. The survivors clung to the rails, broken, sleepless, terrified. The smell of burning wood drifted from nowhere. Eirik fell to his knees, his voice cracking in prayer. "Odin, what curse have I called upon us?" But it was not Odin who answered. From beneath the waves, a shadow moved, vast, silent, unearthly. And from that shadow rose the sound of voices, the women's voices, singing once more, not in sorrow but in vengeance. When the storm broke, only one ship survived. Eirik Bloodbrand stood alone on the deck, surrounded by floating wreckage and whispers. In the mist ahead, he saw 7 shapes, women of flame and water, their eyes burning brighter than the dawn. Then the sea opened its mouth and the ship was gone. Centuries passed, but the sea still remembers. Fishermen speak of a song that rises from the fog when the moon turns red, a melody of sorrow and fire. They call it the Song of the Burning Maidens, and those who hear it never return the same. Long after Eirik Bloodbrand and his fleet vanished, the northern coast became a place of fear. No village dared raise banners of conquest. No warrior spoke the name Hrafnhild aloud. But still, strange things were seen. On certain nights, when the tide was low and the wind blew from the east, the sea would glow faintly, as if lit from beneath by embers that refused to die. And from the water came voices, soft, distant, and full of grief. Old sagas tell that the women of Hrafnhild did not perish in flame. Their souls, bound by courage and pain, were taken by the sea itself, transformed into eternal guardians of those who suffer. They became the maidens of fire and tide, spirits who rise whenever the innocent are taken, whenever power turns to cruelty. Travelers told stories of ships found adrift, Sails scorched, masts blackened, yet no bodies aboard. Only the faint scent of smoke, and the echo of women's voices singing in the wind. Some said it was vengeance eternal, others said it was mercy, that the maidens came not to punish but to remind mankind what happens when honor dies in the name of conquest. In distant monasteries, monks recorded the tale in trembling hands. They wrote that even the gods of the north turned their gaze away, for the bravery of mortal women had become greater than divine wrath. The legacy, the fire that never died. Generations later, sailors still cast offerings into the waves before every voyage. Bits of cloth, drops of mead, sometimes a single flame-lit candle floating into the dark. They do not pray for riches. They pray for forgiveness. And sometimes when storms rise and lightning splits the sky, sailors claim they see them. 7 figures walking upon the waves, their gowns made of flame, their eyes calm as death. The sea burns where they pass. The wind sings their names. Lady Astrid among them, holding her head high, her scars now shining like stars. To this day, in the north, they still whisper before lighting the hearth, "May the maidens sleep tonight." For if their song is ever heard again, it means the world has forgotten what it means to be human.